I got sucked into public service through philanthropy. After my wife and I have done for our home, we decided to look around and see how can we give back some of the experience, skills, and capital. We were fortunate to be raised here in Yerushalayim and to do for our home. So the engagement started in education. I knocked on the door of the principal of my daughter. She was then going into first grade. She's an officer today in the Army. And we asked, how can we help? And very quickly, I realized that the principal of the school doesn't know what she doesn't know. She asked us for computers. She knew I'm from high tech. And she really had no clue how to take smart ideas and implement them in the schooling system. And what I've learned is that the challenges of creating change and leading change in the education system, in many, many ways, is very similar to business entrepreneurship. It has to do with coming up with a bright idea, slowly but gradually defining what is success, and working with many partners to make it happen. Social return on investment is the same as a classic financial return on investment. It has to be defined. You have to derive from the vision, the right steps of how to make it happen, and then go into fulfillment mode and execute. I've learned later that it's the same not only in education, but also in communal life. I got engaged with a number of communities in Jerusalem, in Katamon Chetet Pat, Kiryat Menachem Ir Ganim. These are neighborhoods which are socially, economically lower than what we would like them to be. And I also engaged with some leaders in the communities. And I found out that the talent has nothing to do with socioeconomic status of people. You could find very talented people, street smart, extremely involved and engaged in some of the neighborhoods. And the challenge is how to work with them into creating change in the neighborhoods. Defining with them the priorities, defining the goals, trying to figure out what are the change agents, how to create change. Similarly to working in the education system, similar to business, it can happen if you follow the process of change. Later, when I was, by the way, these are the reasons that I realized as a more and more engaged private entrepreneur working through philanthropy, I realized and got exposed to the challenges of Yerushalayim. The fact that it has to get out of its negative migration, the fact that we have to focus on the young population and get them to stay, improving the quality of education, boosting the economy. And when I did not get elected the first time in 2003, I decided to invest a little bit over 5.5 years in learning and coming up with a business plan, a proper plan, a public plan of how to move the city forwards. Working for a shekel a year, I found that I could focus the vast majority of my energy in creating a number of initiatives that will deal with change. 2 new initiatives that we added when I was in opposition to the education initiative and some of the working in the neighborhoods. One was Startup Jerusalem, Startup Yerushalayim. We worked with Professor Michael Porter from Harvard Business School to articulate, if we have to turn the economy around, how do we make it worthwhile for investors to come and invest and make money? Not only philanthropy, but to become referenceable, to expand the job market, and to actually take Jerusalem out of its poverty. And we created a model of focusing on some of Jerusalem's competitive advantages in health, life sciences, culture, tourism, and outsourcing of professional services. Jerusalem is an amazing brand, and culture tourism, when you think about it, is an amazing driver, economic driver, to fulfill the potential of the city. We've learned where we are relative to other major cities, very methodological, professional work, articulated the area, learned how other cities became successful, and when I became mayor, it was very clear to me that we have to take this and put culture that feeds tourism and is fed from it high on the agenda, create the partnerships, and aggressively pursue the huge opportunity that we have in Yerushalayim. We've dramatically increased the investments in culture tourism. We've created partnerships with the government, and as important, if not more important, with foundations that get it, that are cutting-edge thinkers, and Lynn and her team is one of those partners. The Jerusalem Season of a Culture that you may learn in details is derived from a much, much bigger strategy of understanding that if New York, Paris, London, and Rome can have 40, 50, 60, 70 million tourists a year, Jerusalem can do 10. We had this number, this goal 5, 6 years ago when Jerusalem had just a little bit over 2 million tourists a year. In the last 2 years, we had 3.5 million tourists a year, and we had a run rate of 4 million tourists a year. Now, to get to these numbers, you have to have a big long-term vision and make steps to fulfill it. Create the partnerships, and that is where the networking is extremely relevant, and that is where partnering, private-public, is extremely relevant. And when we put all the egos aside and work together, municipality, philanthropists, government, private sector, that is why you feel change in the air. Because it's all aligned. The vision, the partnerships, the execution. Luck never hurts, by the way. But I do believe that we're on the right track to really create change and proof concept and get Jerusalem to play the role it played 2,000 and 3,000 years ago. We also see the same kind of initiative of another social investment or a group that we've created, and that is New Spirit, Ruach Hadasha. We started it about 8 years ago. It's a sister to Startup Jerusalem. And the idea there was, how can we make the young population that leaves the city the solution to the future? How can we make them stay? And there are no shortcuts there as well. It's about sitting and thinking together. We've created very innovative, talented students from the Hebrew U, Yakir, Roy, Elisheva, and others, and a few business people. And we realized that in order for us to do a better job keeping students and young families in Yerushalayim, we have to better understand what makes them stay. What are the parameters that practically can cause negative or positive migration to the city? And we articulated a few of those. Number one, jobs. That's the role of Startup Jerusalem. It's an atmosphere. Oh, that's being dealt with culture. Quality of education. I want to emphasize here on the reforms that we're introducing to the city. But it has a lot to do with getting the communities of the young population in Jerusalem to the most patriotic young people I know, to create groups of communities that want to live together in Yerushalayim and help them, give them strong backwind to become successful. We've learned that friction, positive friction, getting them to culture, get some subsidies for subscriptions for the culture organizations in the city, internship projects, get them some friction with the business sector. And we started off with a dozen interns. Today we have about 500 interns every year of students that do internship projects in the municipality, in the government, in non-for-profit and private sector in Yerushalayim. 3,000 interns have decided to stay in the city since we started this project. with subsidies to culture organizations. 6-7 years ago, there were about 1,000 subscriptions. Today, we have 12,000 subscriptions of students out of the 40,000 students in Yerushalayim. That's a big number. And we know that they've discovered a new Yerushalayim, which they love. And the number of commitments or involvements and people that want to stay in the city has dramatically increased. And with communities, we've moved from a few communities, 4 communities 5-6 years ago. We have 16 communities of 30, plus minus 30 young people in every group that decide to stay post-graduation in different neighborhoods of Yerushalayim. And we set a goal to reach 50 of those in the next 4 or 5 years. That will create significant critical mass. These are students or young people that we... Interestingly enough, these groups of communities go to Kiryat Yovel, they go to Katamon, to Armon HaNatziv, and to neighborhoods that need them like oxygen. These are young folks that have kids that go to kindergartens and elementary school, and we see very nice growth in the number of kids in the neighborhoods. They have a huge halo effect. Because when they come into the different neighborhoods, the neighborhood wants to see them in leading roles in elections in some of the community councils in the city of Yerushalayim. And all of a sudden you see that they're taking leadership position and influencing not only their own community, but the schools, welfare, scouts, and generally they plug into major leadership roles in the communities and influence the whole neighborhood and communities. And by doing that, they are not only empowering their own community, but they're actually empowering and becoming a major factor in the city's future. The reason I'm mentioning that is that all of a sudden we see movement in Yerushalayim in a few dimensions. Thank God we have excellent results in education. We see the business community moving ahead, private-public partnership with different philanthropists. We see movement with the young population of Yerushalayim, in them taking leadership roles. And more, our role is to create a platform in Yerushalayim to enable you folks, the future leaders of the Jewish people, to make a difference, to make a better quality of life in Yerushalayim. You're all shareholders of the city. We all have to work and do a better job from year to year in creating Yerushalayim more thriving, more successful. Thank God we've been enjoying in the last 3 years growth of about 8% from year to year, way over and above the national average and probably the international average. 24-25%. In the education system, we see that eligibility for matriculations went from below to above the national average. 17% growth in kids that go to youth movements, which I give very high value. We're close to 90% above national average of the national and national religious schools, the percentage of kids that go to the army. And all in all, after 12 years, after decline in the predecessor term, the national education system shrunk 12%. The national religious system, on absolute numbers, shrunk 7%. Thank God we see that from the beginning of the term, we see 1% increase in the national system, Mamlachti, and 3% increase in the Mamlachti Dati. So we're moving from minus 12 shrinkage to plus % growth, to 1% growth, minus 7% shrinkage to 3% growth. And I do believe the result of change in the air in Yerushalayim. But it will not continue if we don't put our hands together and work together for common agreed upon goals if we don't create partnerships that are based on getting things done for the benefit of the Jewish people, in the case of Yerushalayim, for the benefit of better future for the young population, for people like yourselves. So it was important for me to come and support your thinking and your goal. There's no doubt in my mind that 1 + 1 = 3 in many, many ways. I think we've demonstrated that in the partnerships that we're creating around Jerusalem's future, with Lynn and her foundation, and with all of you. I cannot tell you how much joy it brings us moving in the right direction. It's an honor to serve the Jewish people. Remember that. I welcome you to get engaged and involved and make a difference. It is teamwork and networking and getting more and more people around the Jewish people, the world, to work together in harmony, to improve quality of life, both here and around the world, is an amazing, important, worthy goal, which, Lynn, I admire. So I want to wish you all a wonderful summit. Enjoy Yerushalayim. Have you already been to the Light Festival? Okay, you should know that there's a Light Festival until you go to the city and really enjoy Yerushalayim. And don't forget your shareholder. Good luck, and let's see you b'shana haba b'Yerushalayim habnuya.